get to it. All right, so what I want to do is I just want to talk about a few things that will help you for your primary market research today, for your interviews, observation, testing, and the like. So first of all, a few comments. With food waste, where's the food waste team? So there's a team that we had called Spoiler Alert that's dealt with this problem. I mean, it's just a massive problem, so there are many different ways to deal with it. Did you know Ricky and Emily from Spoiler Alert? No. I'd look at the Spoiler Alert. It's in Boston. It's some of our former students. And they wanted to go after this. But what you have to do is you have to segment the market down, and you have to find a part of it that you can address. You can't address the whole thing. You've got to find one, and that one has to not only be impactful for you, but there has to be someone who will be willing to pay for it to make it economically sustainable so that it sticks around. Because charity things kind of like you make people feel guilty and you kind of go, and then it just drops off. So you want to find it sustainable. Congratulations to Team 13. That was really fantastic. Where's Team 13? Well done. You're getting to a script and a plan. That's really important, and just be open to it. So I have some other notes about a good hypothesis, but I just want to go through something that's really important. And many of you talked about what do we do in a multi-sided market? And I just want to briefly tell you a story, because I think you'll learn better from stories. Do you have a good time yesterday? Did you learn stuff? Yeah. Dollar Shave Club, you'll never look at it the same, right? You can still order Dollar Shave Club and love it, but the business. So Dominic was one of our students. He was from Germany, and his idea was we do ideation in a little different way. Each person comes up with an idea, and then you have to go around and try to convince people. It takes longer. There are benefits to each one. There are many paths to success. But Dominic was a young German fellow, and what he wanted to do, his idea for a startup was, you want to guess? Beer. Yeah, exactly. It was a brewing kit called Brew Barrel. And so what Dominic did was, I said, Dominic, I don't tell people what to do, what they can and cannot do. I just want to warn you that I believe you're going to have a real challenge here getting competitive differentiation. How are you going to get your core? What are you going to do for your core? And this was before we did the whole cheeky chompers things and evolved to that level. But he was determined to do beer. Very passionate about it. And so he said, my beer is better than other people's beer, and that's my competitive advantage. What do you think about that? What? Yeah. And after you have 3 beers and someone puts one in front of you, can you really tell the difference? No, it wasn't a particularly differentiated beer. He was just kind of thinking that it was great, but he was determined to do this. So I said, Dominic, you can do it, but you're not going to get a good grade unless you prove that you can get differentiation through this. So he went through the whole process here. He got up here. He still didn't really have differentiation, and he was starting to worry about his grade, right? And so we started to talk about, we're now focusing on how does your customer acquire the product, steps 12 and 13. And now we're really going to get into a multi-sided market, all right? All the stuff you're learning is a simplistic view, but then you're going to have to multiply it times the number of sides to your market. And in this case, the decision-making unit and decision-making process, which is what I call DMP for 13, is something, again, that's very well known. This is what, if you're in enterprise sales, has anybody been in enterprise sales here at SAP? Yeah, so this is what you're taught, what we were taught at IBM. Think about the decision-making unit, the decision-making process. And we're not going to put you through long training for that, but we're going to give you the highlights of what this is. And people say, well, why do I have to do that? I already know who my customer is and what we can do for our customer. I have a high-level product specification. Let's just build the thing. Why do we do all this rubbish in here? Let's just build it. We're engineers. And what I would say to you is, be careful, because you trust the process here, all right? And it's often the person who's rushed ends up taking the most time. So let's just step back here and think about what is a decision-making unit. in a decision-making unit, there's an end user. That's the person who uses it. There's the economic buyer. That's the person who pays for it. And then there's the champion, all right? These elements are important for you to understand. And it's not always obvious. Now, as you go out, you need to think about who's going to use this, who's going to pay for it, and who is going to champion it. So you all have taken the course, but let me go through. Did I do the phone example in the online? I did not do the phone. All right. So can I borrow your phone? Okay. So what is your name again?
Lady.
Letty. Oops, sorry. So this is Letty's phone, a beautiful Samsung phone. Who is the end user of this phone? Letty, right? Who is the economic buyer of this phone? Don't say anything. Letty. Go on. Say it loud so everyone hears. It could be Letty, but it might be somebody else. Who could it be? That's gender bias. Significant other could pay. Who else? Company could pay for it. It could be the parents. It could be the kids. You know, all those are potential economic buyers. Would everyone agree? Okay. Does it matter? Let's bear with me here as we go on now. All right. Who's the champion of this phone? Could be Letty. Could be Letty. So it could be her. Why could it be her friends? Go on. Go on. I want specific. Yeah, they want her to use the same model. Why? Could be social pressure, but there could be actually functional reasons. Integrates with their things, right? Who else could be a champion for this? Her children. Why? Good. Oh, yeah, yeah, well, that's true. That was what I was thinking about. Everyone hear what he said? There could be games on here that they want her to have, right? Why else would the children might champion? Right.
They might use it and show other children as well.
Yes, but there are other reasons why. On what way? Yes? They might get their old phone. Yes, that's true. Anything? Yeah. Yeah, but kids never think their parents are cool, right? You guys are a little young here. Let me just try two more. Yes? Yes, yeah, they could. What? Future users, secondary. So let me just give you, let me just go through this quickly, because I know this to happen, is she could have this phone because her kids want her to have FaceTime, and they have FaceTime, so they can connect with each other, so they can talk to the grandkids, or she can stay in touch with, they can stay in touch with each other, or like her kids don't want to have to explain to her how to use the phone. They're like, Mom, you turn it on, you know. It's like, and they have exactly the same phone. Do you see? Who else could champion this? Sorry? Boss. From work. Why?
Because they want to be able to either integrate everything on the same Google system or whatever,
yeah.
Or give that person work.
So they want to standardize so that it could productivity. There's also could be another reason. What's that? Why were people holding on to BlackBerries for so long? Security, yeah. So we've just gone through this phone. She's the end user. We all basically agree with that. There's scenarios where it could be, but that basically is a given. It's very clear who the end user is. There's a bunch of options relative to who is the economic buyer. There are a bunch of options relative to who's the champion. All right? Does this matter? It sure does. Let's just take one. Let's take, ma'am, you own a store that sells phones. Okay? What do you want the configuration to be? She is the end user. Who do you want the economic buyer to be? She is the end user. She's walking into your store and looking at phones. You walk up and you're now going to try to figure out, she's going to be the end user, but is she going to be the economic buyer? Is she going to be the champion, right? Who do you want to be the economic buyer? Okay. Who do you want the economic buyer to be? Okay. Okay. So we're going to come back to you for a second, but usually people say the person who's in front of you. What? You want her to be the end user, you want her to be the economic buyer, and who do you want the champion to be? Her. Why? Your sales cycle is boom. You can sell it all while she's in the store, right? Wait, I'm going to come back to you. You're very perceptive here, but bear with me. I won't forget with you. So if you're selling it, you get very excited if she is the end user, she is the economic buyer, and she's the champ, because we can just get this done now, and we can move on. Our cost of customer acquisition is very low. So that is a very, knowing that makes you act in one way. Now, go on, sir. I forget, where are you from again? New Zealand. We love Stephen Adams, by the way, and Aaron Baines, too. Do you know who I'm talking about? They're basketball players in the United States. Okay, so, but you say you would like the economic buyer to be who? A company. Why?
Because they're going to buy more product by chance. They'll buy more products.
Yeah. And what does that mean? 3 letters. The first letter is L. The LTV is higher. Now, will it be harder to sell to her? Yes, it will be harder to sell to her, but if you sell to her, so your cost of customer acquisition is going up, which is bad, right? Why do you want your cost of customer acquisition to go up? Because my LTV is going up even disproportionately, right? It's not getting your COCA down, it's the ratio between cost of customer acquisition and your LTV that matters. So when you go into these situations, don't just assume that the easiest one is the best one, right? So what you're doing is you're building personas for each. Did I give you your phone back? All right, good. I downloaded all the information. It's now with Vladimir Putin, and he'll be getting back to you shortly. So this framework of understanding who's the end user, who's the economic buyer, and who's the champion is very, very important to look at. And when you do that, you want to build a persona for the person who's the end user. And even if it's the same person, the person who is the economic buyer will think about this with a different mindset. And so this person you're going to think about differently, and then your champion you're going to think about differently. They could all be the same person, but you may want to have the same person's name up there, but say, oh, in this case, they're influenced by their friends, their family, their, Oprah Winfrey, whoever it is. Over here, who are they influenced by? Consumer Reports, reviews on the internet, some other place that you would find out. And that's important. That's important. And let me just go back. Again, all these slides are available to you. And so what we do in the book, as you saw, is we build this up and figure out who's it. The champion is a very, really important person that's often overlooked. People often just go to who's the economic buyer. But the economic buyer is not going to pay for anything unless the end user uses it. Because if the end user doesn't use it, there's no value created, right? So you don't pay for Google, but you don't go and focus on but Google makes sure that you use it, because the economic buyer is who? The advertisers. But they're not going to pay unless you use it and you give up your data, and now they can go get the economic buyer. So you first have to get the user to make sure they're going to use it, because that creates value, and then you extract value from the economic buyer. So don't immediately follow the money. Now, you could have a very good end user who gets value out of it. You could have economic buyer who's willing to pay for it. But like in the example of the data center, they're not going to do it, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Their number one thing is reliability. So while the facilities manager would benefit from using it, and the data center manager would pay for it because it would decrease costs and good for all, they're not going to champion changing the system. And this happens all the time. This happens all the time. Someone has to push to make this happen. And in the case of what I just talked about, it's actually not anywhere in that organization. It's over here. It's a sustainability vice president or green guru or whoever it is that says, I need to reduce carbon footprint. I need to decrease our CO2 output. And here are the projects. And that person reports into the CEO, and that person will advocate for the acquisition of your product because you need someone to advocate when you're not in the room. And at the end of the day, the decision's not going to be made with you sitting in the room. The decision is made with people who are in that company who all have badges that say the name of the company you're selling to. So do not forget the champion, all right? So now let's just go forward, and then you will have, a lot of stuff is in the book. It's who makes the decision, then how do they make the decision, and we're going to talk more about this. This is how do you think about the various steps. This is kind of the life cycle use case was from the user side, and now we're going to get to what's it look like from the vendor side, all right? So the decision-making unit is who makes the decision. This is how they make the decision. And now we're going to start building, this is the beginning of a sales funnel, which will become really important. So let me just jump to our friend Dominic, all right? By the way, when you're doing your research as well, Professor, I'm just going to wait till the end, all right? Because I only have, wait, you just took the clock down. Where's the clock? All right. Can you put it back up? So I, okay. This is windows of opportunity. Do you understand what windows of opportunity are? So you have to find when they're going to consider buying your product. Because if you don't know that, you can't hit things right. So this was a story of people. Someone said before, entrepreneurship is about changing behavior. It absolutely is about changing behavior. So Target had this super high NPS. This is their persona. Middle-class mom goes there with kids. She buys housewares at Target, just like the stuff that Sears used to play. Then they noticed that she went there once like a week, once every 2 weeks, and then she went over to the grocery store and she bought groceries, and then she went home. And she went to the grocery store and spent a whole bunch of money, but the net promoter score, that means how satisfied she was with them, was very, very low. They liked going to Target. Target had very good processes. They had high customer satisfaction. They gave fair prices, transparency, good employees working with them. And they had high confidence in it, and they had very low confidence. So Target said, aha, let's drive up our LTV here, and let's just sell the commodity products that supermarkets sell. This stuff that they have in theirs that they're buying, we can go to Chile and get exactly the same products. We can go and get Special K and cornflakes and everything else they have. All this stuff, there's nothing exclusive they have. So they got exactly the same things. They use their purchasing capability to get very good prices. They could offer at equivalent prices or lower prices than they could get at the grocery store. And so now, slam dunk. Their persona goes in, buys this, then just goes over here and gets this, and then goes home, saves time, saves money, is happier with the vendor that they're working with. Absolute slam dunk. They roll this out, and guess what? It doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Cognitive dissonance. That sounds like something the professor would say. Can everyone hear what he's saying? He's actually right. Go ahead.
You think Target, you think of a specific products you get from Target.
Yeah, I have a mental model. Target, I buy hard goods for the home, and when I go groceries, I go to a grocery store. Mental model set, boom, boom. How do you break that mental model? That's exactly right. This is called a mental model or a habit. A habit. You have a habit. Guess what? All of us have habits. Some people over 90% of the stuff they do every day, they don't think about. Almost all of us, over 70% of the stuff, we don't think about. When was the last time you thought about, what toothpaste am I using? You know, what was the last time you thought about what type of laundry detergent do I use? You just bang, 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 you keep going, right? These habits are incredibly powerful, and I'm going to show you a book. How do you break a habit?
With small beachhead markets, you slowly introduce the new idea, not overwhelming. Trying to change the perception of the potential customer.
So usually beachhead markets is the right answer, but in this case it's not. But good try, that was a good one. What'd you say?
Trying to change the perception of the potential customer.
Yeah, you tried it, but that's not going to work. You can't like put out a marketing campaign. That might work on the margin. There's very well-known ways in behavioral economics. Let me go to my friend from Israel.
Maybe by positioning differently in the store so that when they walk in or when they go to the cashier,
That vaguely works. There's one big way to do it. Do you know? Go ahead.
You need to find a window of opportunity when that person is going to be more likely to change their habits.
Everyone hear what she said? You find a window of opportunity when people are going to change their habits, right? So, you know, I tell the story, like I always used Crest toothpaste all the way through college and then afterwards. And like I'm like 40 years old and my wife doesn't buy Crest toothpaste. And I'm like going crazy. It's like I cannot brush my teeth without Crest toothpaste. I am literally driving around at 11:30 at night to try to find Crest toothpaste. And it's not because I'm addicted to it from a chemical standpoint. I have a habit. This is a true story, by the way. And you think I'm weird? I've had students that say, I won't even date women who don't use Crest toothpaste. Which gets even weirder when we start getting to the story. So when was the opportunity for Crest to get me? Why did I use Crest toothpaste?
Probably when either it's more available when you're at an when you were at the age when you started using toothpaste, when you started buying your toothpaste.
your parents.
They got you.
Yeah, specifically, my mom got it and gave it to me, and that was it. The window of opportunity was getting my mother when a kid was born and giving them, saying, here you go, I'll give you free Crest toothpaste for 6 months if you'll just have your kid use it. Because then I'll use it the rest of my life, right? This is not unknown at all, especially for men. Like beer companies, car companies, electronic companies want to get young males right when they're leaving college, because then when they get them, they tend to stay loyal for their brands the rest of their lives. I don't know if it's the same in Australia, but in the United States, if you drive a Ford, Chevy is the enemy. I mean, I'm not kidding. Like, they have cars of like, you know, it's Hobbes or Calvin and Hobbes, like a guy driving a Ford peeing, literally urinating on like someone who's driving a Chevy, right? And then it's vice versa. I mean, it's like, this is crazy stuff. But it's true. Even within the family, I've seen this. And so they try to get you. Are you a Miller person or are you a Budweiser person? You know, and young males get very attached to brands and stay with them. And so what happens here is we're looking for a window of opportunity. And what are those windows of opportunity for this person? Well, it turns out there's a few of them. When they move, when they get their first job. But the Holy Grail is to get them, just like when we were talking about my mother, when they're having their first child or when they're having their child, because it's chaotic. At that point, they're willing to change their patterns of behavior. And that's what they did, and it was unbelievably successful. That's what brought them through. None of the other kind of incremental things that you say that conceptually make sense, but when you do the behavioral economic studies, they don't work nearly as well as this. And what they did is they had all the data, and they could tell what this person was buying and if they were pregnant. And then what they would do, the window of opportunity, they would send them a package. Then that's called a trigger. They would send a package and say, congratulations on your pregnancy. We're so happy for you. By the way, we want to give you this. Here's a $50 gift certificate for food. Here's 1 free box of Pampers. Here's blah, blah. And, you know, they gave away, let's call it $250 worth of coupons. what does that $250 count as? That's right, cost of customer acquisition. And it's so worth it because the LTV that you'll get, if you spend the money within the window of opportunity with a well-defined trigger, it is pure, pure gold. So let me just give you, and that's what worked. It worked so well that they started rolling it out very rapidly throughout the entire United States. And it got on the front page of the Wall Street Journal because a young woman in Minnesota got this package, and she wasn't home, and her father picked it up and went down, and he raised holy hell at the local Target to say, what are you doing? This is outrageous. You know, my daughter is not pregnant. And then the daughter came home and said, Dad, we actually have to talk. So there's some privacy considerations here that Target was indelicate about. But the overall story shows you the power of windows of opportunity and triggers, and this is very well known. And so you're always looking for this, and it's really usually right here at the beginning. You got to get them at the beginning. People focus out here, but you got to find a window of opportunity and a trigger. And this is, I sent you a chapter, Thomas, I sent a chapter about windows of opportunity and trigger, and you can look through this. I would look for this, and let me just give you some other ones. Expedia, or what do you use over here? Travelocity, Kayak? So, okay, so Expedia. If I go in here, I put Boston, how much does a flight from Boston to Brisbane go? Do you know what they know? They know I'm in a window of opportunity. The odds are very, very high I'm thinking of going to Brisbane. And so they give me a price, and it says, price is $1,200. And it says, 2 seats remaining at this price. You seen this? You think that's effective? No, as Michael would say, it's not effective. It's freaking very effective. It's really, really effective, right? And you might say, wait a second, that's kind of, well, they might up the price $2, but it's worth it, right? Because they create a sense of urgency. And then at the end of the year, end of fiscal year, like it came up to, when I was working at IBM, one time I got this call at the end of November, and someone said, hey, would you give us a price on all your disk drives, replacing all the disk drives? And I said, yes, sir, I'm from IBM, I'm here to serve you. And then I looked all his disk drives up, and I looked, my God, this will cost millions and millions of dollars. And he just bought them like, I think it was like 12 months ago. So I called him back and said, sir, I have very good news for you. You do not need to buy new disk drives. Or disk drives are only 12 years old. There's been no new technology. There might be new technology 2 years from now, and I'd be glad to let you know when there's new technology. And he was silent. He said, are you going to give me a price to replace all my disk drives, or do I have to call somebody else? I said, sir, let me repeat. You do not need new disk drives. It would be a waste of millions of dollars. He said, let me repeat. Are you going to give me a goddamn price or not? I said, sir, you're the customer. You're always right. It will be $7 million. He said, thank you very much. He bought $7 million worth of disk drives. He did not need.
Why?
Why?
Budget.
You have to use the budget or you lose it. And it was actually worse than that. They were making too much money. But at the end of a fiscal year, sometimes they have budget and they got to spend it. And you got to be in there to do that. And if you're selling to students, you got to get them at the beginning of the school year. And if you're selling enterprise software, you're always looking if one of your competitors is acquired by another company, because that's a window of opportunity. All of a sudden, they're knocked out of homeostasis, and you jump in there. Or, I'll come back to HubSpot in a second. If you're selling security software and there's been a breach of somebody else, then you say, you don't want to be like Target where their data got it. Let us come in and do an audit, and we'll show you how you won't be the next Target. And are they open to that? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And by the way, not only are they open to it, they will not discount you. They won't drag out the sales process. They'll get it done real, real quickly. Let's go back to HubSpot. This is the most brilliant one. So you go to HubSpot. Does everyone know what HubSpot is? Yeah. Called inbound marketing. Like, how do you decrease your cost of customer acquisition using digital tools? And they have inbound marketing is their phrase. And if you search inbound marketing and you go to their website, They know that you're thinking about buying their product. So what is that? Window of opportunity. So what's a trigger now to get them? Well, HubSpot came up with this really cool thing. It was called the website grader. This is Dharmesh Shah wrote this code. And if you give me your website, I will just plow through your website with no additional cost. Just this algorithm goes through and says, here's all the things you do well, here's the things you don't do as well and you could improve on, and here's your overall score. So let's just play this out. You know, let me go. What's your company? Water company. So do you want your website evaluated for free to tell you what's good and not good about it?
Sure, I managed that to be great.
Yeah, free. First of all, people react incredibly irrational when you say something's free. They'll just like, blah, 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 yeah. Like, if you don't believe that, just go to like Texas and watch at a buffet, you know, where it's like, blah, 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 right? So it's free, and I'm going to give you, and you're going to get, so I run it on yours, and what we're going to do is run it and give you a score, and then I'll tell you whether you're a 99, whether you're an 82, whether you're whatever it is, and we'll tell you what you do well, what you don't do well. So, what's your website? www.urbanutilities.com. Good. Now I'm going to plug that in. You gave me that information. I'm going to plug that in. Now I can evaluate it. And where should I send the report to? Your email address. So plug in your email address, and now I send her a report. And that report comes back as, here's all the things you do well. Yeah. 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 But people did trust HubSpot. Yeah. And so what they did is they said, here it is, you got an 81, and here's all the things you did well, but you did not have a clear call to action, your SEO is not particularly high, and you don't have a Facebook link. What just happened there? What just happened? I got a customer, not just at the top, a lead. This is a qualified suspect down here, of which I'm starting to put data behind it. 81. Now, what does she want to do if she gets an 81? And how would she move it from 81 to 100? Yeah, exactly. And so now, that's what's called a window of opportunity and a trigger. It was freaking amazing. It was amazing. That thing for HubSpot is the most brilliant thing. The product actually was, you know, they're one of our students and we love them to death. That thing allowed them to get momentum. That was their Dollar Shave Club video. That was their Dragon's Den thing, and boy, they've ridden it. They're a $3 billion plus company now. And you've heard of them. And this happens with politicians. If somebody says something about you that's bad, I don't know if I have the picture in here, but yeah, this is Carly Fiorina, a woman that ran for president. She got left out of the debate. And did she sit around and complain about it? Nope. She immediately put out a campaign that said, email to all her faithful that said, what's missing from this? There's no women in this. Let's get a woman out there, donate 25, 50, what is that, 25, 50, 100, 250, $1,000 or whatever. Donate money right now to help change this. So she took a crisis and set this up, right? Window of opportunity trigger. Think it was successful?
Did you do it?
Did I donate? That is a very personal question. Are you from Russia? Come on, control yourself here. Control yourself. All right? So this was her most successful fundraising campaign, right? And that's what you're looking for. So as you're looking at doing PMR, look for windows of opportunity, look for triggers. Let's go back to our friend Dominic. Oh, by the way, this is a book that talks about what I'm just talking about. Again, by the way, we're entrepreneurs. We don't really read books. We like watch TED Talks and listen to them on. So just download it from Audible and just do it that way, right? When you're working out, when you're driving around. But this gets into all that I'm talking about and how in much more detail. So let's go back to our friend Dominic. So what do you think he does? Who's his persona? I'll give you a hint. Dominic. So young, educated males who have high quality jobs and have like a girlfriend or getting married. They want to work in these companies in Germany, and they want to kind of have a good social life. They don't have kids yet. Who's the end user? Dominic. Right? Who's the economic buyer? Dominic. What? Where are you from? Wait, where are you from? Do women buy alcohol for men? And everyone's going, I'm moving to India. So, but everybody, it's just like Dominic is the end user, Dominic is the economic buyer, and Dominic is the champion, right? And then let's just get together and watch a football game. But Dominic has to come up with something else, so he thinks differently. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. He thinks differently, and he tries, wait, what am I doing here? He builds a different economic buyer, and it is the girlfriend. He does his primary market research, and he finds this interesting little group that says, yes, I would be interested in that. Do you know why? I'm looking at you two because you're here. Is it easy to buy gifts for guys? No. What do they say like when you ask them, what do you want? Yeah. And then what do? You buy us a goddamn tie, and then we're like, we don't want a tie. You gave us a tie last Christmas. We don't like to wear ties. Why do you do this? And you're like, because I feel bad. I have to buy you something. It makes you look cute. We're like, we're not like your doll. And then a fight erupts, and like this thing that's supposed to be nice ends up being ugly, right? True? Yeah. So they said, we would be interested in finding out if this would be a good gift. So what they do is while all the rest of the fish are swimming this way, Dominic's the end user, Dominic's the economic buyer, Dominic's the champion. Look at how unhappy they are, by the way. Dominic swims this way, smiling away. Don't you want to be that fish? And look at this. Isn't that sweet? He says the economic buyer is the woman. The champion is the woman. Let's just follow through now. Once we do that, it's not enough just to say that. What impact does that have? Okay? Anyone? Yes? More home time? No, I want to talk about acquisition. Exactly. So now all the fish are swimming this way, and they're focusing on the women. None of their ads look like this. Look at that. It's so happy. And look at this. Right? But now let's get to the brass tacks. What's the window of opportunity here? How is this person thinking of giving? How does the person give? Well, it's gift, right? So now it's different than let's just go out and buy it for ourselves. It's a gift. When do you give a gift? Holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, Valentine's Day. Okay. So which window of opportunity do we pick? What were you saying?
When you've done something wrong.
You're smart. But the problem is when you've done something wrong or anniversary, we don't know when that is, right? Because Dominic doesn't have this capability to invade your personal data to figure that out, right? So what would you choose? Birthday, you don't know. Christmas. So we could do Valentine's Day, but it turns out that you might succeed with birthday or Oktoberfest, but Christmas is a really good one because high guilt, they have budget set aside for it, and that's what he focuses on. All right, so the window of opportunity It's gifting for Christmas. Now what? Now what? Yeah. Trigger. What trigger? That's exactly right. You're going through and you're building this economic buyer persona and champion persona. And what you do is you say the window of opportunity is here. How are they influenced? So you build this and you do your research, and he finds out that they're influenced. They read these things, this is really interesting, called magazines. Do you know what a magazine is? It's like a website that's printed out in color. And they actually do. There's no one, who's from Germany here? Yeah, but you're not in our demographic, psychographic. You're Dominic, but you're not the, but women go out and they look at these things and they like to open up a magazine and look at it, right? And then they'll go to websites. And so you're looking like, that's so strange. I didn't, we used to look at magazines too, but that is the primary. And so now what Dominic does is he figures out which magazines, it's not just any magazine, which magazines, when do they look? Turns out he knows the names of the magazines, and when do they look? In November. What? Yeah, it's actually in November for most of them. You can say, well, some of them look on December 24th or whatever. But most of them are, so now he knows he needs to get to these magazines in November. He needs to be in them. He doesn't have enough money to advertise, so what does he do?
Create some kind of a story that's worthwhile publishing in a magazine.
That's correct. Basically, couldn't see you. That's why I was looking around. He basically creates content for them, and he starts wooing these people back in August, October, and says, here's great ideas. Here's some content. He gets on the websites. He starts connecting with them and putting out, making sure that there are reviews about his that are targeted towards this. The women love this. Is a great gift to get. And so he starts pumping this thing, getting it going. And now all of a sudden, he's off to the races. All the fish are swimming this way, to the point that you were talking about there is he comes out with a product that's advertised like that, and look at this. Here are the actual products, right? Mango, grapefruit, honey, chili, and my personal favorite, passion fruit. Look at that.
I don't believe he's German.
What?
I don't believe he's German.
I can assure you Dominic is German. You can go look the guy up on it. And the story, no guy would go in and say, I'd like to order a beer, passion fruit. But German women thought that was a good idea, right? Is that your point?
We don't usually have flavored beers.
Yeah. Well, women who were buying beer thought it was a good idea, and they were the economic buyer, right? And so this is what he did with the advertising I talked about through the channel that was different, and he outsold every single brewing kit by far, made more profit than all of them combined, and crushed it. Absolutely crushed it. And it's just, you have to not just go out and do your primary market research now. You got to know out and go, who's the user, who's the economic buyer, who's the champion, and then build personas of each to go down. And you're going to have to understand, what are the windows of opportunity out there? Are you going to be able to do this in the next 3 hours? No. But try to do it, understand the process, and do it when you go back for your real companies. And then you're going to start. And you have to go back. Don't forget what we did yesterday. Segment the market. You got to figure out, who is this person? Is this in the demographic, psychographic? So you're going to build the kind of market segmentation that Dominic did. And he figured out, here's the different markets. We could just sell to the Dominics, or we could sell here. Get a market segment and then start going down that to try to build the persona. It's not just 100 interviews. It's the interviews that are within your market segment that you're going after. The other ones aren't useful for you. So if I go along and ask you, what do you think about Dominic's idea? And you say it's terrible, I really don't care what he has to say. I love you. I care what they have to say because they're in the demographic, psychographic. This is selection bias. If I just aggregated all the answers here between these four, you say, well, it's 50% of the people like it. No, that's wrong. 100% of the people who are female liked it, right? So you got to segment the market, do it within that, know who you're talking to. Think of the end user, economic buyer, and champion build personas. One last thing. I know I've gone over, but actually I'm less. When you're building a hypothesis, I don't have the slides on this, so you have to. I'm going to just build off what Erdin said. There are 5 things that make a good hypothesis. The first thing is it has to be specific. It can't be general. As specific as you can make the hypothesis, the better. And you're not going to be making these hypotheses. But don't say general things. Get real specific. Like, don't say moms. You have to kind of get down to what types of moms, right? The second thing is a good hypothesis gets to be unitary. Think of this if you're an engineer. You solve for one variable. You don't have a hypothesis that says this and this. No, that's 2 hypotheses. We break them apart. So a hypothesis needs to be singular in nature, not compound. And then you test both of those. The third one is, not only is it specific, not only is it unitary, and this is almost obvious, but I repeat it, it has to be really important. You got to prioritize. There's a million hypotheses, but which are the ones that are the most important that if they are not true, your business is kaput. If they're true, you got something. Those are the ones that you want to focus on. So specific as possible, unitary, important, and then measurable. Can you measure them? Now, this is somewhat related to this. If specificity is good, it's usually easy to measure it, but not always, not always. And then the last one is, which is all these things are somewhat obvious, but it's good to put them down, is you can test it. It's testable. Not only is it measurable, but you can test it. So as you're going through your interviews, do the interviewing technique we were talking about yesterday. Lean forward, be positive in pairs, and pull all the information out. But be looking for market segments. Be looking in those market segments. Who's the end user? Who's the economic buyer? Who's the champion? And then if you can get there, start thinking about what are the hypotheses. I doubt you will get to this in 3 hours. Is that how long they have? 2 hours. If I shut up, you have 2 hours. So, yeah, but this is something, again, for further on as you go through. This is where you're going to be going as the week goes on. But let me stop, and then, oh, Professor, I did say I'd let you ask a question.
The minimal viable product, especially for digital products, should we go against and build it against the persona of the champion or persona of the end user or economic user?
You have to start with the end user, right? Because if you don't generate value, MVP has to do 3 things. You have to create some value. You have to prove that I can create value. You have to start proving out that. Then you have to figure out, can I extract something for this? So you're beta testing your value proposition. You're beta testing the wallet proposition. Will the economic buyer pay something? Just anything. You're not going to make money necessarily on it, but will they pay something? Because anything, again, 0, it's easy. People will agree to 0. But will they pay $10 for it? Even if it costs you $100, will they pay $10? And then the last thing is you start the iterative loop on an MVP. But you're not doing MVPs right now. You are not solutioning. Going back to Erdin's point, you are problem definition at this point. So do not worry about that. All right? You charged up and ready to go? Well, let's do this. Erdin, call to action.
Yes, let's stay here for 5 minutes.